Good afternoon, councillors and staff members. Thank you for joining us today for this. Thank you for joining us for this extraordinary meeting to adopt the draft annual plan. With apologies from His Worship the Mayor, from Chief Executive Simon Bastian, and from Francois Tumuhoi. Now, Leslie, this is in your court, and I think you said that Emma was going to be leading our discussion on the draft annual plan this afternoon. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, Emma, thank you. Up to you.
Excuse me, Chair, just before you do, could we have a mover and a seconder, please, to receive those apologies?
Oh, I'm very sorry. Could we have someone? I shall move the apology to be accepted, and Councillor Davidson seconded that. All those in favour signify, please. Thank you. Okay, Emma, give us your best shot. Councillor Cogan has now also joined. Jenny, welcome. We've just started the meeting.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm here to present the report to adopt the draft of the annual plan for 2022-2023 and the community feedback document to go alongside that if you opt to go forth with community feedback. So I would like to take the report as read and ask if there are any questions from councillors. Thank you.
Just one from me initially, Emma, in terms of community feedback, given that what we're proposing is in line with the long-term plan, do you think that community feedback is still necessary?
I think community feedback in this circumstances is very important. Although, yes, we are still going out saying that 12.5% is the increase, as we had indicated in the long-term plan. There are some changes that, while they don't quite meet the legislation to as significant or material, I think that the community will want to provide their feedback on any of the proposed amendments that there are within the documents.
Okay, councillors, open for discussion on any issues in relation to the report and so on. Just put your hands up when you want to contribute. Jane, I see your hand up.
Thank you, David. It's very general, the submission for the public. Why are there not specific questions being asked about some of the issues?
In this case, thank you for asking that. We haven't provided any options. None of the issues that we're going out with have any options that we can provide. So, for instance, chlorination, because of the new legislation around drinking water standards, we really have to spend this money. We have to undertake these projects. So we can't offer a yes/no option for that. That's essentially why we haven't been able to provide options to the community.
So I understand for the likes of that one, but there are other ones that have increased their capital expenditure, I think it was. And if there's no options, it just becomes an exercise in futility, really, because whatever the submissions come back as, we've got no option to change things anyway.
You could say that, but the community will still have opinions on what we are suggesting, what the council is suggesting, and they may be that the council might make decisions to reconsider some of the capital projects, push them forwards, push them backwards, but that's something that the community would need to have their say on.
Yeah, I just think it's easier for the community to have their say when there are specific questions like, do you want us to continue with Cass Square Playground or with the Heritage Park, blah, 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 whatever. Otherwise, it can be hard for people to find the information to make a comment on. So, yeah, maybe that's just my thoughts. But
Paul Madgwick?
Yeah, I share those thoughts though, Jane. I also found it a little difficult to navigate, and it was the consultation document is very broad brush. And I don't think it's really going to engage with the public as in previous years.
Can
Is
I
it
just
broad?
clarify? This is not a consultation document. A consultation document has very specific legislative requirements that we have to meet in order for it to be a consultation document. This is simply an engagement document to provide the community with information if they would like to provide feedback.
Yeah, beg your pardon, not using that term, the consultation document then, but this is the document by which the public are going to make their submissions. And yeah, it's just, as I said, it's rather broad brush, and then into the draft plan is not easy to find your way through it. And yet there's an awful lot of expenditure in there. I just didn't find it was very user friendly this year. Sorry.
Is that, do you think because it's in line with the 12.5% in the long-term plan anyway, Emma, that there are no issues that really stand out as a consequence? Emma, you're on mute.
I'm sorry, it broke up slightly there. I wasn't sure if you were speaking to me.
Yeah, sorry. Is it broad brush to use that term because what we're proposing is in line with the long-term plan anyway, and therefore there are no contentious issues?
Yes, I would say that what we're suggesting, the changes aren't particularly different from what's in the long-term plan. However, there are obviously some important things such as the 3 waters, drinking water, chlorination, and the suggested changes to the fees and charges that people will want to comment on.
Through the chair, can I just clarify and back Emma up there? I think what we want to do is say to the community and bring this out there that we've got these changes, we've got to spend this money with this water, we don't have a choice to do it, but it's going to, we're going to have to spend this much money on it. We don't have a choice. And we need to bring, because it's such a hot topic and it's such an important thing, we do need to actually provide that information, because it's going to be high profile for the community to see why we're having to put that money in our plan, which wasn't identified so much in our long-term plan. And also it's good practice to actually show that we've increased those fees and charges. They can see what we've done there. And because we've actually had a big review of our fees and charges over this plan, because obviously we haven't done so much so over the past few years, I think it's important that they see what we're doing there to try and keep the rates down and make it and continue with our user pays mantra. I think these are just things that we need to show them what we're doing.
Thank you, Leslie. Paul, your hand's up.
Yes, thank you. The fees and charges, I think, mostly looks fairly reasonable. And I don't know that there could be too much quibbling about lifting them by the rate of inflation, at least. But there are other matters in the draft plan, though, that, for instance, I'd like to know how much is the borrowing proposed over this plan in total?
Yeah, that amount is in there, and we're planning to borrow, well, the balance we will have will be around about 41 million.
From currently,
It's currently at, it's about 24 million, I think.
which is quite a difference. And so,
Yeah, but we should really have been borrowing more this year, but we've dropped projects back. So it wouldn't have been so much of a difference if we'd actually been borrowing as per our plan this year. But because we've had to drop projects back because we've not been able to complete them for various reasons, it does sound like we're jumping a big step, but actually it would have been higher this year and not so much a big step if we'd have actually been borrowing what we would have been doing this year.
yes, for some of those projects that were stalled, but there are other projects that are new in this, introduced this financial year, aren't there?
Well, there's the water projects that we don't have a choice with. And we do have some projects that have been introduced from councillors with some feedback from the community. And anything that we have to put in that isn't in our long-term plan will increase our costs, whether that be loans, expenses, whatever it is. If you were putting things in the plan on top of the long-term plan, it will increase those costs and borrowings.
Yes, understand that, but and of course that's the point, that 41 to jump from $28 million to $41 million is a quantum leap in borrowings for a small council with a small rating base, and although some of these projects have been, as you say, have been stalled and catching up, and others are just new this year, such as Paki Waitara building. And you know, we bought Paki Waitara building for what, $1.3 million, I think it was. Supposedly it was a snip, and now here we are with the seismic strengthening and the fit out, and the bill will be about $4.5 million.
So those items were actually identified in our long-term plan, but can I just clarify the borrowing? If we borrowed this year what we had planned to do in our plan, we would have had a limit. We would have had a balance of 33,800,000, and in our long-term plan we'd identified 40 million. So we're actually not increasing borrowing much in this long-term plan over what we'd already identified in our long-term plan.
Yes, but of course the long-term plan does change. You know, doesn't it? As circumstances change, so does the plan change and has to adjust.
And that's why it's increased from what was planned in the LTP for 40 million to for this
240. 244.
41.
41, right. And okay, so the Paki Waitara building borrowing was one. I mean, that's an awful lot of money to be borrowing for a building basically that we didn't need. It wasn't necessary. It was a property.
But Paul, should we relitigate that, Paul? It's a done deal. We have it, and is there any point in regurgitating that again?
Well, when you're faced with a $4.5 million borrowing in total for it, I think so. Yes, because
through the chair, as has already been explained by the finance manager and partially by Emma, if we take an example such as the Paki Waitara, there's been no increase in the pre-approved budget for Paki Waitara as against what you approved for your 10-year planning last year for the 10-year document. So in terms of what is forecast for spend on Paki Waitara for the next financial year, that is already pre-approved by council going forward over a 2-year period. And it's the same with any other project that has been pre-approved. Hence, we don't have the need to go out and consult publicly because there has been no significant diversion from what you all approved as council last year in terms of going forward following consultation submissions to the long-term plan. What you have before you is the annual plan, which meets the requirements in terms of the 12.5% as forecast for the plan for this year, being the second year of the first 3 years of your 10-year plan. The difference in terms of loan funding is $1 million. And as also pointed out, that is generally attributed to new projects out of council's control, being Three Waters and the requirement to meet freshwater standards and chlorination.
Yeah, I know, and I have a big beef with the Three Waters, obviously, but we have no way to wriggle out from that one. The understand that this was in the 10-year plan, but once people and ratepayers see this all in context, and here we are now from $28 million to $41 million in one leap year, and there's no discussion about it. Well, I'm sorry. And the other one was the museum expenditure. That does that add up to? Was I looking at $1.4 million for the fit out for the museum?
Have you got that figure to hand, Leslie? I appreciate it's short notice in terms of meeting time.
No, I'm not offhand now.
Page 11.
Sorry, I was still on the borrowings there. Sorry, what was the question again? Can you
The
just
value for the fit out for the museum, just to confirm, it was 1.4 as budgeted for and approved in the 10-year plan and consultation?
haven't changed it. We've just
No.
split it among projects. That's all. I think it is mentioned in the document that that's what we've done.
That's great. So once again, it is a figure that has been publicly consulted on as part of the 10-year plan. It has been scheduled as a project within the 10-year plan period. There is nothing new, while having an appreciation of impact on rates for ratepayers, of which we are all ratepayers. There is nothing new, hence the need not to consult. The issue we have before council right now is because there is no need to consult, as staff, there is a recommendation included that we at least engage with the public so that they can provide feedback on those issues that are either outside of council's control, which may or may not shift public debate in terms of central government at a later time and provide value, or other issues of concern which might then bring council an opportunity to consider other aspects coming forward, or perhaps not even included in the 10-year plan as part of submissions last year going forward. Hence the need for engagement. Or we could follow the line of other councils in the West Coast, which we would not recommend, which is not to consult and just broadly go and say, we've met the requirements, it doesn't exceed the limitations as presented in year 2 of the 10-year plan, and you could adopt the plan today.
Councillor Neal. You're on mute.
Apologies. I'm concerned about what feedback we're asking the public for that we're actually going to be able to act on. If it's just asking for comments, we can get that through the newspaper or whatever. I do think we need to have options there. And the projects that came through from councillors, I would like to see them have options attached so that the public actually can put forward their view on it. Paul, you commented on some of the charges going up by the cost of living increase. Some of them were going up by like 60%. So some of those charges have gone up a lot more. Maybe they're justifiable. I hope we don't get a lot of pushback on those.
Councillor Cogan.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but when we set the LTP last year, hence why this year we we were starting out with a 15% rate increase, and we brought it back to the 12.5, which is what we had all made a unanimous decision to do back last year for the LTP. My understanding with the annual plan, because I've had queries from community societies around, the cost of going out to consultation, and why that is actually necessary. And in this situation, like if we're just asking for simple feedback, because I've read through this and I haven't seen anything in there that indicated, other than Three Waters that has literally been, all sort of enveloped over the last 12 months, that isn't a decision that we hadn't all made and decided on in previous. And so in theory, unless there's something that really stands out, isn't the annual plan, shouldn't it generally be just a rollover?
You would like to think so, but under the basically the Society of Local Government Managers and Local Government New Zealand and the OAG all say it's very unusual for an annual plan not to go out for consultation. It's only a handful of times you probably wouldn't go out to consultation. However, there isn't a big cost to going out to consult. The costs around the LTP, not so much an annual plan. The cost of an LTP is huge because we've got audit and it has to be audited at general times. Going out to consult, and this is not consultation, we're just being open and we're suggesting being open and transparent about the changes between the LTP and the annual plan, and we're going out there for feedback. It's an engagement, so we're just engaging with the community.
So basically, we're just providing this report for them to review without, but is it actually noted anywhere when this goes out for feedback that there's no significant changes to the LTP other than the Three Waters? Shouldn't we identify that as well? Otherwise, aren't we going to find with feedback they're going to come back and want to go over some of the decisions that were already made and were passed in the LTP?
Those are identified. Any changes are identified in these documents.
Yeah, but like I have to go back and then also agree with Councillor Neil around, like, it would be good if, there was like a summary of that, because when you look at this document, I mean, it's 85 pages long. It would be good to be able to actually highlight the areas that we're requiring feedback from the community over. Otherwise, I just think that we're going to head down a track of, everybody thinking they need to reply with feedback to everything.
Jenny, I don't think we're requiring anything. I think people just have an opportunity for feedback. We aren't requiring feedback on any particular issues, I don't think. So it's up to members of the public who want to engage, that they've simply got that ability and right to use this mechanism to do so.
But what's the difference between feedback and consultation?
When we consult, we generally have options that we need to provide for the community to make a decision again. So that could be something such as yes or no, or an option to do one thing or another thing or another, or no. So that's when we're going out to consult. We're saying we're doing something, but could be how you do it. You could do it that way, or that way. Whereas this was, we've got what we've got. This is what we're going to do. We'd love to hear your feedback and what you think about what council is doing for you.
Okay, because generally people think it's a consultation though, don't they?
That's why Emma has specifically stated in it that it's feedback. We want feedback, and that's what the press release, and that's what the the backup to this will say that we're not consulting, there's no options to give you.
Okay,
We're going
that's
to-
cool. So we're going to very clearly state this is not a consultation document. We're just requiring feedback
Yes,
on any of the specific areas in there.
and
Yeah.
that's all the communication behind it. As Jane has just pointed, Councillor Neil has just pointed out, the actual document itself is only 18 pages. I think you're looking at the agenda as a whole.
Oh, yeah, because I was going over all of the financial stuff as well.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jenny. Councillor Martin.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Carruthers. Thanks, staff, for the work on this. It's appreciated. I've just got a couple of questions, but I just want to clarify in the first instance the implications of a feedback document versus a consultation document. So are we able to, when we consider and hear what we're calling submissions at a submission hearing, are we able to make material changes to the annual plan at that point? And I'm thinking of an example for where someone might, or a group, or we receive a number of submissions in relation to an item. Are we able to adopt that and include that as part of the annual plan, all those changes? Maybe they're saying we stop a project. Can we actually do that, having undertaken a feedback process as opposed to a consultation process?
Emma, as the communications, can I ask you to?
I would say that it would probably depend on the specific item. If it is an item that is going to be of much wider public interest than just the 3 people or whoever have submitted on that, then you may need to then consider whether it needs to go through into another full consultation process, or perhaps be fed through into the next annual plan and therefore go out to a full consultation process. If it's an item that is within the actual current plan itself and can be considered and discussed at the table, every person has had the opportunity at that point in time who's read the feedback document and the plan to consider whether they're interested in it. In that case, I would say that yes, you could then make whatever the change that you as a council agreed on.
Okay, thank you. So an example would be, like, let's take the rate strike as an example, where I think there's a $13 residential tourism targeted rate. And so if we've got a sector of the community saying we'll move that to $14 or lower it to $11, can we make decisions like that as a result of a feedback process as opposed to a consultation process? Even though we've listed all the rates, we've listed all the fees and charges as part of the feedback document, but we've been caught, and Leslie will probably know what I'm talking about. We've been caught in this situation in the past sometimes where we think we can make some decisions, but we're actually hamstrung over what we actually deliberately, or the deliberate wording that was used in the consultation document, which then enabled or disabled councillors in the ability to make some decisions in relation to particular matters.
Provided you resolve to make the change.
Yeah, so, okay, so I just play this out again. So some, if there was an issue that came up that wasn't included in the feedback document, that had been a project or something that's identified in the long-term plan and was, proposed to be brought forward or delayed, could a decision be made on that, even though it's not explicitly, explicitly listed in the feedback document?
So if a project is in the long-term plan, there is no need, there's no LTP amendment or anything like that. You can't move them around.
Yeah.
Without having to consult, without having to actually carry out an LTP amendment. So if there's something identified in the plan, there's even in the long-term plan and not in this plan, yes, you can move it around, you can make that decision.
Yep, and I'm just trying to think about, like, the purpose of the feedback, right? Because there is there is actually no point in undertaking a feedback process, in my opinion, if we can't respond to and make decisions based on the feedback. So that's what I'm just testing here.
Sorry, I was going to say, I would personally say that you wouldn't want to move too far away from it, but you can make changes. But you wouldn't want to make significant changes anyway, because that's likely going to be significant change from your LTP, because this is not significantly different from the LTP. But if you do that, then you would be looking at, you would need to go through a full consultation process, potentially even an LTP amendment, which we really, really want to not have to do.
Yeah, no, I understand that. And what about things like smoothing the rates further? So, for example, the 12.5% proposed rate increase, if we receive a number of submissions from the community saying that's unpalatable, it is a lever in our toolbox machinery to actually smooth that further, to actually consider smoothing the rates over the next 2 years as proposed, but doing more of that?
Well, you could do, but I would highly recommend you don't do that, because you're going to put us into a position in the future where you're really going to make council, especially when the Three Waters reform happens, you're going to put us in a position where we have no funds and we will have to start getting short-term loans, which will cost the community more and increase the rates even more. Potentially even we'll fail with our LGFA covenants and we'll have to borrow with banks, which will increase the costs even more. And we may even have to, we may not even be able to get those limits, and we'll be in financial distress.
Yeah, no, I just figured that we're no doubt, if we elect to go for a feedback process, we're no doubt going to receive feedback in relation to the proposed rates increase. So I'm again just testing that ability there. I'm not suggesting that we should. I'm just saying, you know, what's in our ability to make decisions around, because, you know, already people have strong, you know, given very strong messaging, I think, to elected members around the number of 12.5. But yeah,
make changes. So regardless of feedback, you can make changes. But as we've been through this with workshops and feedback from council, I would suggest this is the plan that we've gone out with based on those workshops with yourself.
Yep.
So
I certainly, I'm not proposing any amendments at this point. I'm just thinking over the next month, you know, we've got a feedback process being undertaken, and we will receive feedback by way of submissions, and then we will obviously make decisions in relation to those, even though some of those decisions or some of the matters that we may receive submissions on actually leave us with no other option other than to proceed with what is proposed in the plan. But there needs to be the ability to make decisions. Otherwise, the feedback process is just a nonsense, and we might as well not undertake it.
You can make those changes, those decisions, provided that's what you will go through the meeting at the time and go for adoption or changes or whatever you want to do, which makes sense to do. But I highly recommend you wouldn't touch the rates increases and start smoothing it out further. In the end, what happens is we'll end up resetting, as we've had to do this time through the long-term plan. We'll end up having to do that in the next long-term plan. So it doesn't make any sense to actually, we should see what we're doing.
Yeah. And thank you. And the second part of my, the second question I had was a proposal around actually having engagement sessions, and thinking about the engagement sessions that we run over the Three Waters matters, and that they were held on Zoom, whereby staff actually talked through particular issues in relation to that proposal at the time. Realising we're in a COVID environment, and maybe face-to-face isn't preferred for everyone, I wonder if there's an ability to add some community consultation sessions by Zoom as part of the feedback and engagement process.
Let's use engagement, not consultation.
Yeah, sorry, I'm trying really hard to not use the word consultation, even though we're still using the word submission. So sorry.
Well, it's possible to do that, yeah.
Could, for example, pick out some key matters, and this may help the likes of Councillor Cogan and Councillor Neal, where they're saying we'd like to, council would like to hear particularly around these matters. We may identify significant matters and run 3 or 4 Zooms, that each one on a particular matter. It might be that it's really good for the community and the residents to hear around our revenue and financing and our rates, right? You've given an aspect of that today, Leslie, but it might be that one could be dedicated to that. One could be around CapEx projects and, the phasing of them and why they're being done. I don't know, I don't have all the answers, but I think it might be worthwhile considering those because people may engage in that as a forum and then think, okay, well, now that I've participated in those or I've heard those matters, and we can of course put them on our Facebook after the live stream, we may receive submissions in relation to those matters.
Yeah, we can do that. Of course, councillors will need to give up their time because councillors own the plan and will need to be part of those engagements.
Yeah, I think that's critical too. Yeah. So that was my wondering is if we're not providing a submission that's yes or no, or a feedback document that has options, maybe we provide a mechanism of identifying the things that we would like to actually hear community feedback in relation to.
Aren't we opening a can of worms to do that? We do that. So,
through the chair, I'd just like to respond to that. I think that if we do provide sessions like that, we are creeping into the consultation
I agree.
as opposed to engagement. We don't typically do that for an annual plan anyway. Unless there is a specific issue within a specific community that we go and speak to that community about. I think that we'd want to be quite cautious about how we went about those kind of sessions to make sure that the community did understand that this is a feedback document, not a consultation document with options for them. Thank you.
Paul Madgewood.
Phew. Right. So I'm just surprised at the questions over whether or not to go out to the public with this. This is democracy in action. This is the opportunity that ratepayers get only once a year to have a say. It's not only once every 3 years. They don't only have a say on the long-term plan. They have a say on the annual plan as well. Whether or not the annual plan deviates from the long-term plan matters not a jot in my book, because this is democracy, and like it or not, this is what local government's all about. And it's allowing the people to have their say, and that say comes annually with the annual plan. And the that was my main point. I think we do need to go out, call it whatever you like, call it feedback, consultation, whatever the term is. In my naivety, it's still just about engaging with the public and letting them have their say. If they're all good with the council and what we're doing, then there's nothing to fear, nothing to worry about with this, and the feedback response will be either non-existent or it'll be all cater pie. But if, however, there is a feeling of discontent about any particular issue out there, then that's in that plan, then this is the opportunity for people to have the say, and I defend the right of the public to have that say. I disagree entirely with these councils that have opted to forego the public process with their annual plan. Grey District Council was one of them. I think it's a mistake. And it's only a recent thing that they've jumped on board with this. Only very recent years that this has happened. The councils, this is a hallmark of local government, is the ability of the public to have a say. Councillors don't need to take any notice of it, but public have to have the opportunity to have that say. You can call it consultation, you can call it feedback, you can split hairs over it, I don't care, but as long as the public have the say.
Thank you, Paul. Okay, Di, well, I think we at the point we need a motion to, if we're minded to adopt the draft annual plan and approve the engagement process. Do you have a form of words there for such a motion, Di?
Yes, I can read that out, Chair. The report from the Strategy and Communications Advisor be received. That Council adopt the draft annual plan 2022-2023 and draft community feedback document, and that engagement with the community be undertaken from 9 a.m. Friday 6th of May to 5 p.m. Monday 6th of June 2022.
I'm happy to, Councillor Martin.
Thank you. Just wanted to clarify something. May have misheard. Is that council adopt the annual plan, or is that adopt draft annual plan for feedback?
Draft. Council.
Draft annual plan for feedback. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. I'm happy to move accordingly. Do we have someone who's willing to second the motion that Di just read to us? Councillor Martin has seconded that. Those in favour, please raise your hands and signify your approval to me. The motion is carried. Tiara, is there anything else we need to attend to today?
Not in regards to this extraordinary, Chair.
Okay, Di, are we good to conclude the meeting?
Yes, I'll just stop.
Councillor Neal.
Sorry, just a heads up for the councillors that weren't at the one just before about the planning. Lathan, do you want to talk to that, just to give them people a heads up that there's going to be a meeting on that?
Can we close this meeting first?
Yes, okay.
Yeah, sure. Sorry, Leslie.
Do we need a motion to close the meeting? Di?
You can just declare the meeting closed, Chair.
I declare the meeting closed. Thank you. Okay. Lathan.